I hate minimaps. They not only distract, they chain my eyes to the corner of the screen. The beautiful world, the breathtaking scenery, all are for nothing, because my eyes are in the corner of shame. Nevertheless, they exist in so many games. This is why minimaps destroy your player experience. To be fair, minimaps are not only bad. They have a very specific purpose, to give the player an overview. They show you paths, mission points, enemies, dangers, and other points of interest. When you drive to a mission point in Grand Theft Auto, you have a navigation system in your minimap. When you are being chased by the police, you see where they are and can dodge well. In MOBAs and real-time strategy games, minimaps are almost a necessity anyway to keep track. They are convenient, no question about it. But is convenient always good? Should one automatically use something because it's convenient, because it makes life easier? Then you have to ask yourself, what do you actually want from the game you are playing? Is the goal to beat it? Do you just want to pass the time? Do you want to measure yourself against others? Do you want to experience an exciting story or breathtaking world? There are many reasons to play games, or rather, for every reason there are also suitable games. If you just want to pass the time, then you can play pinball, for example. If you want to measure yourself against others, then there is FIFA. FIFA FC, EA Sports FC. Or Counter-Strike, League of Legends, or even Dota. If you want a story, a world to experience, there's plenty too. The Elder Scrolls, The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Red Dead Redemption and all the rest. Here, it's about immersion and not about micromanagement. In it, the game world is what it should be about. And this is exactly where the biggest problem with minimaps lies. Minimaps distract. When a minimap is integrated, you can't help but look at it. It is basically the same as it is with subtitles. When I turn them on, I cannot look away. And so is it with minimaps too. They are such a valuable tool that it becomes hard not to rely on them excessively. Of course, you can try to look only when you really need to, but the unbelievable wealth of information they provide is simply too tempting. It's like with the phone. Out of nowhere, I catch myself unlocking my phone to check whether I haven't missed any important news. A real urge has developed to do that. Similar with the minimap. Everyone is trained to take the path of least resistance. And using the circle of distraction is definitely the easier way. And yes, circle of distraction is definitely the right term. In these epic games, especially in open world games, the minimap clearly distracts. It's understandable that the developers, especially with large open world games, want to provide the player with as many tools as possible so that they don't get lost and can always find the way. But in doing so, you also take away from players the ability to find their own way. Such a world is supposed to invite you to discover, to follow your urge for curiosity. But if you only ride along the line on a circle in the corner, it doesn't feel like you're discovering the world. You're just a passenger. Yet you're playing and not watching a movie precisely because you want to interact. Because maybe you want to visit the one village you spotted in the background to maybe buy a few apples there. But Jake, I hear you say, if the minimap is such a problem for you, why don't you simply hide it? Many games offer this option. Yes, you can of course do that, but the big problem that comes with it is that many games are designed so that this is not practicable. Some games or missions you can't even do without using the minimap. Some missions are designed so that you go to certain places that you can't find any other way except via a marker on the little circle. There are also games that you can play relatively well with the minimap hidden. Then you might have to open the main map now and then to check the rough direction, but as long as this necessity stays within limits, that's fine. Because my main reason to play without a minimap is that I'm seeking immersion. I want to dive into the game world as well and as deep as possible. A floating circle in the corner of the screen is not exactly conducive to that. But if, due to the missing circle, I regularly, almost constantly have to pause the game to open the big map through the menu, that breaks me out of the immersion even more. The Witcher 3 is a good example for that. The minimap and the markers are extremely helpful for working through widely scattered quest lines and finding interactions easily. Without a HUD, much of that is possible, but unbelievably cumbersome, because you then have to open the main map over and over again to check the right direction. In the end, CD Projekt Red increased the flexibility of the HUD. You can now have the minimap automatically fade out when you are exploring. However, the game is still designed to be played with the full HUD. The world of The Witcher simply does not allow you to find your way and know where you need to go solely through the information you get from the scenery. And yes, I can understand it a little as well. The minimap is a simple solution to a big problem. Designing the game world so that you can find your way without further information undoubtedly requires immense effort. By implementing a minimap, a lot of development work and thus also money for production can be saved. And if it is attempted to implement it without a minimap but does not succeed well, it is no fun to play this game. If you simply can't find some quest markers due to the lack of striking terrain landmarks, then at some point you will simply no longer feel like completing quests and you will put the game aside sooner or later. There are indeed methods to design games of large scale so that they remain clear. You can divide large maps into many small, clearly assignable segments, for example, through different biomes. Because the map differs greatly within itself, you more easily notice where you are and how the paths run. Additionally, it makes the world seem larger when more places of the world remain in your memory. Alternatively, or additionally if you want, you can also build one or more large distinctive terrain landmarks into the game that are visible from almost everywhere in order to simplify navigation. Shadow of the Colossus does that, for example. In the middle of the map is a shrine of worship. It is visible from almost everywhere on the map and thus you can orient yourself well by it. There are many games that design it that way. Elden Ring with the Earth Tree, Breath of the Wild with Hyrule Castle, or the Wind Waker with the Tower of the Gods. And it works. To then keep the player from overlooking the small side activities, these are also designed to be easily recognizable. Shrines or other points of interest have striking colors, easily recognizable shapes, or they even glow. I've already mentioned GTA. Set a destination and the GPS paints the exact route in purple. Cops get line of sight cones on your radar when you're hidden, so you are literally driving by radar and timing cones instead of reading the city and listening for sirens. It works, but with that second, you play the game only with the minimap and not with the other 95% of the display. In addition, a routine creeps in all by itself that you simply follow the markers on the minimap blindly without thinking for yourself where you should go next. You quite naturally get the next waypoint of the story prescribed. In principle, you could thus nearly finish the game without ever paying much attention to anything but the minimap. Simply go through checkpoint after checkpoint and you have beaten the game. The only question is it fun in the long run? Do you play just to beat the game? The nice things about games are exactly the stories and worlds you can immerse yourself in. And you should experience them fully, without a distracting minimap in your field of view. A game that tried to break this behavior is Assassin's Creed Origins. There, the minimap, otherwise common in Assassin's Creed games, was replaced with a top-of-screen compass, with the goal of bringing your attention more into the world. The developers themselves said that with this they want to achieve that you interact more with the game and not just jump from icon to icon. Of course, you're also distracted by the compass, but since it can give you significantly less information, you're not as dependent on it as on the minimap. Some games at least make your dependence optional. Red Dead Redemption 2 lets you cycle the radar with a quick tap, flipping between off, compass and expanded views. That means you can ride with nothing on screen, then pop the radar for a few seconds at the fork without pausing for menu diving. It's a small quality of life choice that saves immersion from death by map checking. If this kind of deep dive helps you enjoy your games more, consider subscribing and hit the like button so you don't miss out on our next videos. The best fixes aren't just toggles, they are diegetic. Sea of Thieves puts a paper map in your character's hands, and so does Ark Survival Evolved. You can jog while glancing down, you can look up at landmarks, and the simple act of orienteering becomes play. Metro Exodus uses a physical journal map and a wrist compass, keeping your bearings inside the fiction instead of on a floating UI. And years before that, Far Cry 2 made you literally pull up a folding map while driving the savannah, trading efficiency for vibe and memory. In each case, you navigate by reading the space, not a widget. I prefer less HUD in general. There are so many ways to reduce the HUD and give the player the information in another way, like the ammo count directly on the gun in Halo. Ghost of Tsushima goes even further. No minimap, no compass at the top of the screen, no map to hold in your hand. There is indeed a map you can call up via the menu, but it is not designed for orientation. Instead, Sucker Punch came up with another system. A system that fits the atmosphere so well and is so well integrated into the game that it simply feels natural. Swipe the controller's touchpad and the wind kicks up, bending grass, tugging a Jin's cape and pushing leaves toward your objective. Birds and foxes pull your attention to secrets. Smoke columns, color-coded biomes and weather cues telegraph interest without a single corner widget. It's beautiful, but it's also smart. All that direction lives in the world, so your eyes stay there too. The team literally engineered the wind and particle systems to read as guidance while still feeling natural. The result is navigation as a tactile, audiovisual language. You're not following a line, you're riding with the island. Systems like guiding wind restore a basic loop Minimaps often short-circuit. See something, get curious, move toward it, and be rewarded for paying attention. When the world itself teaches you how to read it, you build mental maps. That's why Tsushima's regions are drenched in bold palettes and strong silhouettes, and why sightlines are carefully composed. The minimal HUD isn't an aesthetic flex, it's a way to shift your focus back to the environment so landmarks and routes imprint. Another angle is to make the main map smarter and the world louder. Elden Ring famously avoids a minimap entirely, relying on a strong skyline, a readable compass, and player-placed beacons that show up as pillars of light you can see from far away. You don't stare at the corner, you look up at the horizon. It's opt-in guidance that preserves the feeling of finding, not fetching. Of course, it's easy to flame. I am not the one who develops the games, but there are, after all, many ways to solve the minimap problem better. And quite a few developers have already shown how. Here are a few thoughts how to handle the minimap problem. First, out of sight, out of mind. If the player doesn't use it, fade it out. Witcher's next-gen option to fade the minimap while moving, or the disappearing bars for health and stamina in Monster Hunter is a step in the right direction. The less HUD, the better. Second, make it a tool, not a shackle. Follow Red Dead Redemption's lead and bind a quick, temporary toggle so players can pulse the radar on demand and let it vanish. Third, use a compass instead of the minimap, especially in exploratory games. A compass tells you only where, but not how, and leaves pathfinding in the player's hands. You feel freer in movement and maybe you will discover some things you would otherwise have missed in the tunnel vision of the prescribed path. Fourth, invest in diegetic aids. Sea of Thieves maps, Metro's journal, and Far Cry 2's in-hand atlas turn wayfinding into roleplay. You're not following UI, you are a person in a place doing a thing. Fifth, let the world talk. Do what Tsushima does and build navigation into wind, lighting, color, wildlife, and silhouette. If your environment artists are killing themselves to make striking vistas, don't ask players to stare at the box in the corner. Sure, in some games it's hard to do without minimaps completely. I already mentioned real-time strategy and MOBAs. What it's mainly about for me is that in games where the world and the story matter, a minimap can be distracting. In Forza or Gran Turismo, or in games like eSports FC, minimaps are not a thorn in my side. I understand that in GTA the minimap can be very useful for police chases. Instead of navigating through the city via the minimap, you could have the street signs light up brightly and prominently to show players the right way. Let's be honest, minimaps are a cheap solution to a hard problem. Building memorable landmarks, instructive lighting, and readable route design costs time. Teaching the world to communicate takes iteration. A minimap turns all that into a data layer in a corner. That's efficient for devs and comforting for players, but it also flattens the reason open worlds exist. And as we all know, time is money. So it is the obvious solution to implement the easy widget instead of a well thought out system that doesn't rely on this red ring of death, of immersion death. Now a challenge. Next time you play a game and you can bind toggling the minimap on and off to a key, turn it off and only turn it on briefly when you really need it. And watch how quickly you will memorize the world. This also goes out to the developers. Leave the minimap hidden by default with the function to briefly display it when needed. Give us a world that wants to be read and not a HUD that wants to subjugate us. Minimaps aren't evil, they are just overused. When they lead, we follow a line. When the world leads, we build stories. If you want more worlds that make you feel smart, curious and present, reward the games that ask you to look up. Drop your takes in the comments and tell us about your experiences with Minimaps. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out our video about Ghost of Yotai. See you next time here on NerdSection.